to try and stop this. And actually, Bundy, this guy, Cliven Bundy, was part of that, right? But they failed, and this was the late 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and they failed. And then what happened is this thing called the Northwest Imperative, which was when Tom Metzger from California, he was the Grand Wizard of the KKK in California. He tried to get the nomination for the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives in California, and he won, because this is the United States, okay? He won the nomination for the Democratic Party in 1980. He lost to the Republican guy, okay? He lost, he got 18% of the vote, and the Republican dude won. And then he was like, well, I didn't win, so we're gonna have the Northwest Imperative, which was, we are going to focus our organizing in Cascadia, in the Northwest, to try and recruit some of these white people. It's largely white, it's largely rural, and far away from Washington. So this is like prime recruiting grounds. And the way that they tried to do it here, one of the specific ways is that they tried to infiltrate the punk movement in Portland. And it didn't fly too well. I mean, there were skinhead wars. It was called the Skinhead Wars in 1980s, where this group called WAR, White Aryan Resistance, was trying to recruit in the punk scene. They got some success, but they were also met in the streets with a lot of violence and force from groups like Anti-Racist, thank you, ARA, and a lot of people went to jail, a lot of people were hurt, and there was a lawsuit as well, where actually one of the people tied to war killed an African immigrant, and so some like liberal groups sued war and won, and they got the biggest settlement up until that point, or not settlement, the biggest victory, whatever, $14.5 million. Bankrupted Tom Metzger, who's completely irrelevant now, bankrupted war, and basically kicked them out of Portland. So that was like a victory for this area. And in the 90s, Earth First became very popular here, kind of fused a lot with ARA, and you had things, episodes like ARA people going to Earth First Free States in Idaho with guns to defend the forest occupations from the local militia and patriot groups, you know? So there's this history of like bioregionalism as an anti-racist thing. Bioregionalism, we'll get more into what it means, right? What bioregionalism is, basically defined by geographic borders and sustainable and resilient human systems of living with the land and listening and working in solidarity with Native peoples, and not recognizing the statist ideas of borders that enforces dispossession, hatred of immigrants, and the enforcement of a class system where basically immigrants and people of color are pushed to the poverty, pushed to the state of poverty in a systemic fashion, and more toward generating community solidarity and a more ecological way of life and understanding life. So obviously that has nothing to do with like any of this like white power stuff, right? So how do we, as a kind of as a bioregional movement and people working in larger movements for liberation and freedom, you know, how do we all kind of come together and work in solidarity and destroy the white power movement, which is growing so fast, right? So that's a big kind of general sort of understanding while we're having this larger conversation. And so our panelists today for our anarchist or liberationist talk show are going to be speaking to some of that stuff as well as their own experiences and generally what they want to talk about. I'll leave it to Ajamu.
Well, thank you, Sasha, Lona, and Scott, and greetings to everybody, or as we say, Waho Sitin, which is a West African Fonte greeting because Portland needs culture like that. So, greetings, hello. As Sasha said, my name is Ajamu. I'm an organizer for the All African